Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. We're really excited to have Charles Roy with us. He's the VP of Technology for H.H. Brown. Charlie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect, fantastic. Well, my name is Emily. I'm a product marketing manager here at Cisco, for those of you on the call. What I'm going to do before we get started, I have a very quick favor to ask of all of you. There'll be a quick one-question poll that you should see momentarily on your screen. If you don't mind filling that out, I'll leave it up for maybe 15, 20 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's session. And I see many of you are going ahead and filling out that poll, so thank you. Those of you that are just joining, I see some folks are still just joining us today. Right now, if you don't mind filling out that poll, that'd be great. All right, I see that most of you have gone ahead and filled this out, so let me go ahead and close this poll, and we can go ahead and get started with today's session. So here's the agenda for today. What we're going to do, I'll give a very brief introduction to Cisco Meraki for those of you who may not be familiar with us. We'll talk a little bit about why cloud networking, why you might want to choose that, and then we'll launch very quickly into the case study, which is the meat of today's session. We've got Charlie on the line here from H.H. Brown, like I said before, so we'll have a bit of a fireside chat with him. Then he has graciously offered to let us demo his networks, his Meraki networks, so we'll do that. And we'll wrap up with some Q&A and an overview of the product line if there's time. So that reminds me, my good friend and colleague Olivia is here on the call with me today. She's here to answer any and all questions that you might have. But in addition, she's going to be collecting questions if you have them for me or if you have them from Charlie. So throughout the webinar, if there's something that you want to dig deeper into or ask more questions about, let us know. She'll be writing those up on a board, and we'll try to bring those into the conversation as we can. So I am excited to talk about the free access points for qualified IT professionals on the call today. We'll give you a free access point and a 3-year cloud management license with it as well. So 100% free, yours to keep and use. It'll be a great way to get your hands on Meraki technology and try out our dashboard. So if you have any questions about eligibility details, I'd encourage you to check out the URL at the bottom of the screen there, meraki.cisco.com/freeap. And to get your access point out to you, we do need you to call us and confirm your shipping information. So you should have received a reminder email in your inbox. If not, check your spam folder, but it should be there, and in it should be the contact information for your Cisco Meraki rep. So without further ado, I just want to introduce Cisco Meraki to those of you who may not be familiar with us. We are part of Cisco's new cloud networking group. Meraki itself was a company that was founded in 2006 by a research team from MIT, but we were acquired by Cisco at the end of last year. Now we have a full array of edge cloud networking products. So we make access points, we make switches, we make security appliances, and we have a 100% free mobile device management solution, which you can download today and get started with. We've seen explosive growth across all of our verticals. We're really excited actually by the Cisco acquisition because Cisco has committed to all 4 of our product lines, and we're going to be using their market reach to bring Meraki products to new customers. So we are trusted by thousands of retail customers. This is just a small example from our client base here. So you can see we service everything from small customers to large customers. And just to give you a little bit of a view here into some of our clientele. And we often get asked the question, why cloud networking when we're introducing Cisco Meraki? And the reason for that is that the cloud does fundamentally increase IT efficiency, and specifically around these bucket areas that you see here. So manageability, scalability, and cost savings. And you're going to see in the demo and hopefully when we sit down and start talking with Charles, you're going to see the benefits in these categories. So you're going to see this really deep rich end-to-end visibility and control that you have from any internet accessible location. When you think about manageability, you're going to see things like seamless updates to your gear. There's no manual downloading or staging that's necessary on your part to get feature and firmware updates to your Meraki products. You're going to see things like zero-touch deployments, so you can literally pre-configure devices before they've ever been connected to power or to the internet, and then once they are connected, they'll go out to the cloud, grab their configuration, and start running with it. So it really makes the deployment and management of remote sites easy. So that sort of bleeds into the scalability bucket. The cloud is virtually limitless. You know, we can scale and grow with your needs. You're not going to run into some of the bottlenecks that you find in traditional architectures. So, you know, things like needing redundant wireless LAN controllers or AP limits or things of that sort. And then in terms of cost savings, you know, aside from getting overlay hardware out of your network, you might find that you're traveling less to remote sites because you can manage them from your armchair or anywhere that you have internet access. And you might also find that you're spending less time and less man hours, less money training IT staff. Our dashboard's really, really intuitive and easy to use, and you'll see that in the demo. So just to wrap up, again, 4 product lines. Everything we build here is designed to be 100% cloud managed, and everything has integrated networking and security features. And really quickly, I do want to talk about our networking architecture. So what do we mean by cloud-based? What are we talking about here? So this is a high-level schematic of how we work. Essentially, you start with a Meraki appliance of some sort, whether it's an access point or a switch or a security appliance, and that Meraki product is going to initiate a secure, small connection back to our cloud, our data centers that are located all over the world. And that connection is going to give us the management and monitoring statistics that we need to present graphs and consumption and usage data to you from a web-based dashboard. So again, when I say dashboard, you know, you go to the internet and you'll see we go to dashboard.meraki.com, and that's basically your command and control center for all of your networks and all of your appliances. Now, I do want to just highlight, because it is really important, that we have a complete out-of-band control plane here. So what do I mean by that? No end user data or traffic is ever passed through or stored in our cloud. So very, very secure. The cloud architecture that we have a 4 nines uptime SLA agreement with our data centers. So high availability. We have redundancy built in case of catastrophic failure. Meraki itself is PCI Level 1 certified. The cloud undergoes daily penetration tests from McAfee, and we're SAS 70 and SAE 16 certified. So high availability, high reliability. There's a lot of security built in, and again, you know, very, very scalable. All right, so this brings us to the meat of the presentation, and this is where I'd like to get Charles on the line. Charles, do you mind introducing yourself and letting us know who you are?
Yes, hello. Boy, you're so kind. My name is Charles Roy, Vice President of Technology for H.H. Brown. She made me sound really good there for a second. I've been with the company 21 years. Basically, I started out stocking shoes in our distribution center back in 1992, and I've worked my way up from there. My responsibilities include basically anything infrastructure, encompasses servers, firewalls, wireless switches, PCI compliance, telecommunications, basically anything information security related as well.
Great. Great. And then just for the benefit of folks on the call, do you mind giving us a little bit of information about your company? I'm assuming we have a bunch of retailers who are sort of in a similar spot that you were back when you were trying to choose the direction for your network. So,
yeah, H.H. Brown. Yeah, H.H. Brown was founded back in 1883. We have multiple brands, multiple divisions underneath H.H. Brown umbrella. My network staff consists, well, my direct network staff that manages all the equipment is 6 employees over 5 locations. and we basically maintain 1,400 employees at 56 locations. And if you see by the slide, it consists of headquarters location down in Greenwich, and then multiple branch offices. We still have manufacturing in Pennsylvania, and we have 2 distribution centers, one in Pennsylvania, one in Dexter, Maine, and we consist of multiple retail store locations on the East Coast.
Okay. So you sort of have a fairly lean IT staff and a whole bunch of different sites that you're managing, and your employees are dispersed too, it sounds like, so not all necessarily in a central location. Okay.
That's correct, yeah.
So for the benefit of the folks on the call, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about your previous network architecture and specifically what the challenges were that you were facing. What made you sort of go out and decide that you wanted to sort of overhaul your network?
Well, there was a couple different aspects of our decision. We had different brands of access points throughout the organization, from Symbol to Cisco, different versions of the Cisco access points, and then we also had multiple Cisco controllers that to manage those Cisco access points, and then that was the Wi-Fi side of things, and then we also had Fortinet firewalls at all our locations, and we had a situation where we started to see failure rates, meaning ports would start failing or flash would just fail on us after a reboot. And to maintain the latest version of software for the Fortinets, we would have to do a refresh anyway. So that's when we stepped back and said, well, should we consider other partners? And that's when we looked at SonicWall, Cisco again, and then Meraki. And we actually started with Meraki back with the MDM. A colleague of mine down in Greenwich, Connecticut, found the Meraki MDM, and that's when we actually, were introduced to Meraki. Before that, we honestly didn't know of Meraki. And
no, it's a good story to hear. Yeah, no, it's
so
part of why we do that, actually, the free mobile device management. Yeah, so people can get exposure to the dashboard. So it's cool that you actually found us that way.
Yeah, that's how we found you, and we saw what it had to offer. We were invited to a couple webinars. We got some free gear, and then we started playing around with it. So that's how we really got into the Meraki environment and really liked it.
So when you were going through and thinking through how you wanted to sort of update your network, were there any sort of deal breaker must-have features that you were looking for in your replacement solution?
Well, we wanted, basically, I like to use it as one pane of glass. I want to be able to go to a dashboard to be able to look at my switches, my firewalls, my access points. I don't want multiple portals to go into to try to figure out what's going on, which that's what we had before. We did not want a lot of training to be able to just do basic maintenance, and that's where we were, stumbling a little bit with Fortinet. Is while Fortinet worked well, some of the maintenance could be problematic, specifically any version updates, software. We've had some, we were burnt a couple times there. So those are the kind of things we looked at. We didn't want to have, skilled, needed to have a lot of training to get people up to speed, my technicians up to speed, and we wanted, one unified portal to be able to view, administer, report on.
Okay. When you were evaluating the Meraki products, were there any initial concerns that you had that the testing or the evaluation helped alleviate? Was there anything that you were like, well, I'm not sure if this will work, but then when you tried us, you were assuaged, I guess?
Basically, when we first started getting into it, I was always in the mindset of, you needed to plug a console cable into a a laptop, configure it through a command line, because otherwise you couldn't get it to work. I mean, that's how the Cisco environment has been. So I was a little skeptical at first, to be honest with you. It was like, no, this can't do what they say it can do, and as easy as they say it can be done. So we ended up requesting some demo gear to set up our own firewalls in the lab, set up our own site-to-site VPN in the lab, set up our own basically anything I could think of to throw at it. It did what I needed it to do.
Okay, awesome. Glad to hear that. So that kind of brings us naturally, I guess, to the next slide here, which is sort of the benefits that you've seen. Some of the things that you were talking about as must-haves. Needing easy management for a lean IT team. Sort of the automatic firmware updates and things like that. One of the bullet points here is interesting to me. Have you ever had to roll back a firmware update to a previous config?
We have not yet.
Okay, all right.
But
Well,
at least
for those
with
of you
Meraki, we have not with Meraki. Other vendors, yes, we have.
Okay.
But
so
Meraki,
we sometimes get that. We sometimes get that question from the audience, which is how easy is it to roll back? And it is actually quite easy. You can just give support a call, and we can reset your gear back to a previous firmware version. Another really interesting point here is the sort of the bulletproof security for PCI compliance. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about that and how you have made, if you have, your network PCI compliant.
Well, yes, we are PCI compliant, and we use the air marshal to do, because that's one of the requirements of PCI, is to identify rogue access points. So we have, we're using air marshal to do that. Obviously, there is a built-in PCI report in Meraki, so it'll go through and kind of do, like a self-assessment type of thing on your environment. If you maintain the type of encryption and password resets, password lockouts, things of that nature as well. So that's kind of, because if I went with another solution, I would have to get other equipment to detect rogue access points, and this was built in.
Right. Yeah. So for the benefit of those on the call, our wireless access points come with this feature called Air Marshal. There's no additional licensing or cost for it. It's just built-in whips. So we can probably demo that too if we have time. So in terms of your deployment, can you tell us how that worked? How long that took, how you rolled out your deployment?
Well, we purchased all the gear. We had all the gear sent to our Andover office in Massachusetts. We ended up, we did extensive testing before we even got to that point anyway of ordering. But when we actually received the equipment, we set up a couple of demo stores, I should say, and we had a point-of-sale system. We made sure that all the firewall rules, all the traffic shaping, all the content filtering and everything was working, and then we took that and made a template. So at that point, we could take that template and create new networks off that existing template, which made, so the initial setup was, a day or two just to get everything just right and test and everything, and then rolling out the networks was very easy because we used that template to copy from. And what was nice about that is, mostly everything was, change IP address, change DHCP, everything else, all the firewall rules and content filtering and everything came over with the copy.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. So I know we're going to, in the next couple slides, talk through some of what's on here in more detail in terms of going through the configuration of your gear. Here's just sort of an overall look at what you have deployed where. At most of your locations, are you using a full stack of gear, so a security appliance, a switch, and access points from Cisco Meraki at this point, or are you still...
Well, most of our locations have a security appliance and access points. I only have 2 locations right now that have switches that hopefully will be, changed next year, rolling out aggregate switches at all the other locations.
Okay. And just because we do get a lot of questions often about this too when we're talking with customers, what are you sort of using on the WAN side? Are you using MPLS? Are you just sort of using broadband connections? How is that? How are you connected out?
On the WAN connections to most of my main locations, we're using MPLS. All the stores are internet connectivity, either through high-speed cable, DSL. It depends on where they're located, what we can actually get for internet connectivity.
Okay.
But yeah, all the communications to the stores are all internet-based with IPsec VPN, a complete mesh network. And actually, last week we had a major MPLS issue in one of our locations, and we had to reroute what normal traffic that usually goes over the MPLS for quality of service. We rerouted it over the IPsec VPN that was already built just by changing some routes on our switches, and we were able to at least maintain connectivity while the MPLS was repaired. So that was a good backup strategy we had.
Awesome. All right, so let's actually dig a little bit deep into your configuration. So I was wondering if you could talk about your MXs. So these are sort of the absolute perimeter devices at most sites, or are they sitting behind some additional firewall? Let's start there.
They're all perimeter devices at all locations.
Okay. And you had mentioned you've got a full mesh setup between them, so that's great. Are you deploying any site-wide, like Layer 3, Layer 7 firewall rules and traffic shaping, or are you using group policies?
Yes. We actually have Layer 3, Layer 7 traffic, Layer 3 and Layer 7 firewall rules to, stop P2P sharing, audio. No audio on our network, so it just kills bandwidth. We do have bandwidth restrictions at most of our locations, so individuals can't just hog up the bandwidth by watching videos. So we do a lot of that ahead of time before it even gets out there. It's we have a complete split tunnel VPN like we talked about.
How long did that take you to deploy, by the way? Setting up the site-to-site VPN, how long does it take?
That actually took about 30 days to do everything from start to finish for our MX appliances. Our Wi-Fi's took a little longer, but our MX security appliances only took about 30 days to roll it out. Because it was as simple as setting up the networks, assigning the MX appliances to those networks, deploying those MXs out to the locations with simple instructions. Plug, the internet connection into Internet 1 or LAN 1, and plug the the local router local switch into LAN 2, and off it went. And what was interesting is once we saw the MXs come online, we would go through and turn the VPNs up manually just to make sure that everything was good, and there were several occasions that I actually had to do that on my iPhone because I was traveling, and I was able to still turn those on.
Nice. Do you guys use WAN optimization between the sites at all?
At this point, no, we don't. We tried it. It didn't seem to work well for our needs, and so we disabled it. But most of our main locations are MPLS anyway, so they don't go through the appliances. Okay,
great. Awesome. So switch over and look at your switches, and I see that you've got some things set up here like QoS and perhaps DHCP containment for rogue DHCP servers. Do you guys use VoIP phones and voice VLANs at all?
Yes, we do, and that's the main reason why we set up QoS. So we have the voice has priority over all traffic on the network. Data can be slowed down, but voice, if you drop packets, it's not good. So we actually have quality of service on our voice VLAN. And
are you? Sorry.
No, that's fine. We did set up the DHCP server blocking because we've had issues where someone plugs in a device, unintentional, but starts dishing out IP addresses and people stop working.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that was a new feature that was pushed out, I want to say maybe a month or two ago to the switches, the DHCP server containment. And then it looks like you're using some of the, getting the same visibility with the switches that you get with anything else in terms of the clients and the applications. Have you ever had to go in and use the live tools, do a packet capture or a cable test?
Yes, we've had to do packet captures in the past when we were trying to troubleshoot configuration, trying to figure out why things weren't happening when we expected them to. But yeah, we've had to use the live tools, download that information to Wireshark and go through it that way and analyze it.
Cool. And then for folks on the call who don't know, that we're talking about tools that are actually diagnostic and troubleshooting tools that are built into the dashboard. So, from wherever you are in the world, logging into your dashboard, you can remotely troubleshoot your devices. Okay. So let's see. So let's go talk about the access points. Are you applying policies and firewall settings on your access points as well, or just site-wide with your MX security appliances?
We do it in both places. We have guest access at all our locations, and we have guest access firewall rules on both AP and the MX appliances, just as that double protection. If something gets through, then it gets stopped at the firewall. But yeah, we try to do as much as we can within reason, of course, because access points are just they're not as powerful as the firewalls. So like content filtering, we won't do on the AP or even try to. But we try to do as much on the AP for the layer 7 for the guests, so they're like, you can't get to my local network, but you can get out to the internet, things of that nature.
Okay, and then can you talk a little bit about your Active Directory integration, how you set that up? Was that easy? Was that hard? And what that's doing for you?
That was actually pretty easy. We have it set up so all locations, the network's the same name. That was one thing that was different with our old environment. Every location had a different name, so you had to have all these configurations on all the devices different. We ended up having it so no matter what location you're at, you connect the same way, you authenticate the same way with the username and password, and you get granted to the network that way. So it's been working. That's been working out very well. Okay. It wasn't that difficult to set up either.
Are you? We often get questions about roaming between sites on these webinars, and do you have any issues with that? Have you had any problems with clients being able to connect to the same SSID, but maybe in just different sites or from AP to AP?
We haven't had any issues. I mean, we had some issues out in the warehouse, our distribution centers, because the number of access points and the overlapping of channels. We've pretty much worked that out with the distribution centers. We find that we can't have the dashboard or the portal auto-assign channels in the distribution center because everything changes so frequently with inventory and things like that. So we were getting too much automatic channel changes, and that's where we're getting some issues. But in our office environments, that's not a problem. And when people go from location to location, I haven't heard of any issues.
Okay. We have a question from the audience for you, which is, if you could give a rough estimate of how many clients you think you can serve with your access points as they're deployed. I know it would probably depend on which venue the access point is in, but do you have any comments there?
I haven't seen any issues with any load on these access points. I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, maybe at any given time we've served 100, 150 employees, depending on where we are and what we're doing. For example, we have a New York showroom, and 4 times a year we have a show, and there could be 150, 200 employees connected to our Wi-Fi. That's all we have down in that location, and we don't have any issues with performance. If anything, since we've upgraded from the older Cisco APs to the Meraki APs. The experience has been much better.
Okay. And then
Hope I
another
answered
question
that
from the
question.
I think you probably did. Another question from the audience for you, which was, have you had any, have the Meraki firmware updates been disruptive to your business in any way at any point?
No, actually it has not. There was an incident where we were having a little bug with something. We called called tech support. We ended up scheduling a firmware update for that night, and we noticed that it rebooted because we get alerts. Next day we came in. Yeah, there was no disruption. It was done in the middle of the night, scheduled.
Cool. And then apparently there's a question for me from the audience, which is, does Meraki support AVG? And the answer is yes. Our access points, the MR12, the MR16, the MR24 are 802.11n access points, but they are backwards compatible with AVG, although you can disable support for those legacy speeds if you want. So the answer to there is yes. And then we recently announced our MR34, which is our new 11AC access point as well. All right, so the last question I have for you, or two last questions I have for you is, are you allowing, obviously you're allowing sort of BYOD onto your wireless, I guess, with guests. Are you applying policies sort of automatically by device type, or you're just relying on your applications and sort of throttling and traffic shaping applications and types of content?
Right now, we have a policy in place. People have to have that connect to our network, have to have the Meraki MDM. But what we are testing right now is device fingerprinting. So regardless if you somehow get on my network, if you have the Meraki MDM on it or not, if you get through somewhere, we are going to isolate these wireless devices to internet only, because there's no real reason why these devices need to touch my internal network. So I'm actively, to answer the question, I'm actively testing doing that when a client connects. It's going to identify by fingerprinting and put that device in a particular policy to isolate them so they can't have direct access if they get through.
Cool. And one more question for you from the audience, which is, are you isolating your point of sale system from the wireless LAN in retail locations?
No, we're not.
Okay. All right.
Well, for the guest, yes, obviously, but for, like, if a manager connects to their Wi-Fi, they can ping the one sales and vice versa. But yeah, guest access is always restricted. Okay.
So you said earlier, you're enforcing a policy whereby BYOD client devices would need to enroll in your systems manager network to get access. So that's a good segue into Systems Manager, which again is our free mobile device management for those of you who aren't familiar on the call. I was wondering if you could just talk us through how you're deploying this, what it's doing for you. Are you managing applications? It looks like you have Wi-Fi templates that you're pushing out to devices. If you just speak a little bit about this and why you're using this as opposed to some other option.
Well, we're using this because we looked at several pieces of software to manage devices, and we found this one very user-friendly and obviously, inexpensive, and it worked, well for our environment. What we end up doing is, when a new employee starts, we have email templates that go out to them with policies. They have to sign the policy, then it comes back, and they have to install. So we send links to install the Meraki MDM. If they, if they have an Android, it actually sends them a link with the Android link, or iPhone with an iPhone, iPad with an iPad link. So we've kind of automated that internally with our programmers to make that easier for the deployment. And we don't go too crazy with the restrictions. We want to make sure it locks the screen. We want to make sure there's a password on there. What was nice is when we started rolling out the Wi-Fi's, we pushed the Wi-Fi configuration. So basically all they had to do was open up a browser and authenticate to the splash screen, and they connected to our Active Directory and was put on the network. And then be able to lock and remote wipe or even locate. That's was very important for us, and it does all that very well.
Awesome. Cool. So we've got a little slide here just sort of highlighting the results of the network as it stands today. So it sounds like you've simplified your network and device management for your lean IT staff that's kind of distributed across various sites. And you've got traffic shaping and firewall policies in play to sort of shape and throttle your traffic. You're able to troubleshoot or configure, I love this bullet, your network from your mobile phone. I've done that for my home network as well from my iPhone, so I hear you on that. Actually, if you hadn't heard, we just released an iOS app for managing your wireless part of Meraki network. So if you haven't checked that out, you should.
I wasn't aware.
Yeah, we're gonna keep building up on it. It's version 1, but there's now a dashboard mobile phone app for iOS users. And it sounds like it's working for you. So I guess my last question for you before we get to the demo is, where are you going with all this? What all are you going to try to do going forward?
Well, I love the idea of being able to offer, guest access to our customers in the retail locations. So we are, playing around with the Facebook integration. So we'll put, signage in the stores. We'll encourage people to sign in with their Facebook account and get guest access and drive traffic to our Facebook page, and they can check in and just drive traffic that way. So we definitely are looking to do that in the near future. Really start playing around with more of the presence analytics, which I still haven't dove too deep into that yet. It's pretty interesting, but I mean, I'm sure we can demo some of the locations. For example, the New York location. It's just the amount of people that walk through that area. It's pretty wild. And then we have a lot of core older switches that we currently have here, and we're looking to get more of the aggregate switches with their layer 3 routing and VLANs and whatnot through the Meraki interface, the same one you will be demoing. So we're excited about doing that in the coming year.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that about your network and your setup. We really appreciate it. I think what we're going to do now is go through and actually demo your network. And if at any point you see something that you want to highlight or you want me to dwell on, just let me know. Similarly, for those of you on the call, if there's any questions that you have for me or Charles, keep those coming. Olivia is avidly responding to questions and putting some stuff on the whiteboard, so we will get to that. All right. So what I've done prior to this webinar is I opened up a web browser. I went to dashboard.meraki.com. I logged in with username and credentials, and what you're seeing here is actually, and this is your network, right, Charlie?
Yeah, this is, yes.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I found the right one. So Charlie has graciously let us demo his network here for H.H. Brown. So we found his network, and if this were your network and you were a customer of ours, you would have the exact same experience that I just had, which is you log in anywhere in the world that you have a web browser and an internet connection, and you're going to be dropped into an overview page that is similar to this. It's basically giving you some real-time statistics about the networks and devices that are in your organization. So what's great about this is I could deep dive into any single one of these little icons here and get a more granular view of the kinds of devices and the kinds of networks that are deployed. So you had said New York. So let's see. So if I come here, it looks like y'all are fairly close to Times Square, at least in this location. I could also come here and do a search. If I had a particular network name, I could type it in here, or if I wanted to find networks that support, oops, pardon me, I timed out. I'm sitting there for a while, so hold on. And I have a long password, which I'm prone to mistyping, so let's see
Oh, that's good.
if this works. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So I'm back. So that is actually the experience that everyone else would have. You'd log in that way, and you can drill down this way if you wanted to get to specific networks or specific devices, or of course, like I was trying to show you, you can do things like, search for networks that have wireless devices on there or switches, and I guess you did say you had 2 networks that had switches, or if you wanted to see networks with the security appliances, you could. So very, very easy there to deep dive. So let's actually deep dive into New York. Actually, you know what I think I will try to do? It looks like you have an MX here. So let's start at the perimeter. What I'll do is I'll start with the MXs. Now this demo is going to have to be pretty short and pretty quick. Unfortunately, we are pressed for time, and I want to show you at least the killer features of all of our product lines, or at least touch on some of the features that Charlie was talking about. So in terms of the MX, what I really want to show you is how very easy it is to, first of all, go into any Meraki equipment and get a sense for its status. If you go to a configuration page, and all of them have a page like this, you'll get information about it, what kind of device you're looking at, where in the world it's located, some statistics on uptime. You'll get a real live port panel view, and here's the live tools that we were talking about earlier in the webinar. So the real-time diagnostic troubleshooting tools that are built in. It looks like you're using 2 uplinks here perhaps to pump traffic out. But you've got a bunch of tools that are pretty typical for those of you who do a lot of network administration. Now, I would say the killer page for clients, and this is a page that is available for anyone who's got an AP, a switch, or a security appliance, is the clients page. And this is where you really dig in and look at the usage and the number of clients and the kinds of applications that are being used for a duration of time. So we're looking at client usage for the last week at this particular network in New York in all clients. So you can see you get a lot of information. We've got a very cool functionality which we call device fingerprinting, which Charlie alluded to earlier, which essentially lets you do things like search for client devices by type. So if you have any iPads, for example, and in fact, let me just bring this over here so you can see we are looking at Apple iPads. You can do so by device type. You can look for devices by operating system, so you can see Windows. You can even check, let's see if you had any, let's see, well it doesn't look like in the last week you had any Windows XP, but if I were looking to see if there was a Windows 8 device, I could find that here. So you can drill down even into operating system version, but you can do things like search by IP address, by MAC address, by the manufacturer, by the name of the device, or if you had any kind of users, if you're integrated with Active Directory like Charlie is, or Radius, you could search by users and very, very quickly get a sense for how many out of your total client devices that search term represents, or the subset is. Similarly, we do device fingerprinting or application fingerprinting, so you can get a very quick sense for what kinds of applications are consuming bandwidth on your network. So if we come here and we sort by usage, it's really easy to see what is actually happening here. So a lot of YouTube, for example, a miscellaneous web. Well, if we wanted to actually deep dive and see what that is, we can easily click into the application, get a little bit more information about it, and come down and see who are the top consumers of that application. So with miscellaneous web, we're looking at TCP port 80 traffic, and here are the client devices that are consuming the most of it. And if we scroll down a little bit more, you can actually see the specific destinations or the specific applications that are being used depending on the application category, and how many active time, what the active time per client there is. So I'm obviously not an admin, so I can't see this, but Charlie can probably see what these specific sites are. And if you wanted to come in to any particular client device, you'd come to its configuration page, and you would be able to do things like, ping it, pull some data on it, get a little bit more sense for what kinds of consumption patterns it has in terms of applications and in terms of specific destinations here. And this is great because if you needed to, drill down at a client level and actually block the client or apply a particular policy, you could drill down here. So what I want to show you really, really quickly for the appliances is the site-to-site VPN, because I think this is definitely the killer feature of our MX security appliances. And literally in 3 clicks, you can set up site-to-site VPN. So when you come to your MX, what you're going to first do is enable a split tunnel or a full tunnel VPN. Then you're going to decide whether you want a mesh topology or whether you want a hub and spoke topology. And at that point, you might be done. The cloud and the MX, well, the cloud already knows which subnets are available to export over VPN, but you can come in and click yes, yes, or no, and then you hit save. And once you do, all of your VPN peers will start showing up as you go through that process on other MXs or Z1 teleworker gateway appliances. So very, very, very easy to set up site-to-site VPN. Now, I'm going to give you a very quick overview of the switches. So let me go back here and find your switch networks. We'll go maybe to Greenwich, Connecticut. So here's a switch. If I were to click in here, I can very quickly come to the switches configuration page. So it's similar to that of the MX. Again, you're getting statistics on uptime, what kind of switch it is, a live port panel view. So the P here is indicating that this is a PoE modeled switch, and the PoE is enabled on that switch. And you can see the switch has an array of live tools as well that are slightly different from those of the MX, but still great. And I would say the killer feature of our switches is found in this switch ports page. Now you're going to have a clients page with the switch, so you'll still get the visibility into the applications, the client devices. You'll still be able to do that dynamic search, for things like Windows machines or iPads and things of that nature if you wanted to. But where it gets really fun is the switch ports page, because we have a feature that we call virtual stacking. It's a little bit of a marketing term, but what it means is that what you're looking at are all the switch ports across your organization. So Charlie has 2 switches. For a grand total of 51 switch ports. He can do things like select ports 1 through 5 across both switches, regardless of their model or where they're located. He can do things like say, I want to find ones where the link is running at 100 megabits per second. So we found 100 megabits per second, and maybe we want to find well, it looks like there's only access ports here at this point, but if we didn't know that and we wanted to find also the ports that were access ports, we could do that. So you can very quickly winnow down to a list of ports based on the sort of adjectives you see here. So things like whether there's a port schedule applied, whether there's some sort of access policy that's applied to the port, if you've got MAC whitelisting on or off. Once you've figured out the ports that you want to operate on, all you do is select them and hit edit. And you can do things like enable or disable a spanning tree, power over Ethernet. If it's a PoE-enabled switch, you can set access policies. We support 802.1x wired and MAC-based radius for access policies. You can set a port schedule, which will basically turn the port on or off at specified times of your choosing based on a template that you create. You can set VLANs. You can set voice VLANs. So we often get the question, do we support CDP? And the answer is yes, we support CDP version 2 for voice VLAN. So if you've got Cisco phones that only speak CDP, we've got you covered. So it's very, very easy to come in here and essentially manage your switches. And then again, come in and get the sort of visibility into who's passing what kind of traffic through them. Now, let's go back and look at the New York Wireless. Now, one of the things that I want to show you here is how you would go ahead and configure traffic shaping and group policies. Now, you can do this at the AP level and also at the MX security level. And Charlie's doing both, but I'm going to pretend like I'm creating a new group policy. So I would come in here, I would name my policy something, and I can come in and create custom firewall and traffic shaping rules. And what you can do is you can add your typical layer 3 firewall rules if you wanted to, but because we have this deep layer 7 visibility, you can come in and outright block entire categories of traffic if you want, or you can come in and select specific applications. And if you don't want to outright block a particular kind of traffic or a particular kind of application, you can traffic shape, so you can throttle or prioritize traffic in some way. So one example I like to give is if you had any kind of let's say video and music traffic, so maybe Netflix, Hulu, perhaps Google Video, if you wanted to throttle these somehow, you could come here and you could say, I'm going to choose a limit and throttle them. It's as easy as that. If you wanted to prioritize traffic, it works in reverse. You'd find the traffic that you want to prioritize, you'd make sure that you ignore any limits, and you would set this to be unlimited. But essentially what you're doing is you're throttling traffic as soon as those packets hit the access point. It's not just when your network is saturated, so it's not really sort of a QoS type feature. It's literally we're shaping the traffic as soon as the packets hit the access point, or in the case of the MX, hit the MX. And that's how you would do that. And of course you can go in and apply these policies to users, if you're integrated with Active Directory or Radius, or devices or groups of devices. And a very cool feature of our access points is you can apply these kinds of policies automatically by device type. So we also leverage that client fingerprinting capability. Now I'll show you really quickly where you would come in and do things like what Charlie was talking about, set up Facebook Wi-Fi splash pages, and how you would set up the policies that apply automatically by device type. So you can come into this access control page, select the SSID that you want to operate on. And here's where you can do things like determine what kind of splash page you like. And if you had selected Facebook Wi-Fi, what that would do is essentially for that particular SSID that we're operating on, if your organization has a Facebook page, you can use that as part of a splash page login and allow users to associate to your SSID using their Facebook credentials. So there's a lot of benefits there. You sort of get the demographic data that Facebook collects for visits to Facebook pages and things of that sort. You make it very, very easy for folks to log in. So we're highly integrated with Facebook there, and you can very easily enable this. Another feature that you talked about was the Systems Manager Sentry. So right here, if you wanted this SSID to only be available to people who enroll their devices in your Systems Manager network, you could enable that here. And then if you wanted to assign policies automatically by device type, you can. And it looks like there's a few. So he's got a couple of device types that are selected, and he's applying specific policies to them. And that's a great sort of set it and forget it type feature. So he knows that all Androids that connect to this SSID are going to be getting one particular group policy, while all Windows machines are going to be getting another policy. And I think the last thing that I'll show you here is the presence analytics. I can find it. Let's see. Well, we have a heat map. Sorry, there's a couple different versions of the dashboard UI going around, and I've gotten used to one of the ones that here we go. We haven't quite released out to the public yet, but this is Presence Analytics. So this is something that Charlie and everyone else who had access points woke up to one day. It was a feature update, and what you're looking at, what it does is it essentially helps retailers and locations sort of monitor the appeal and engagement and loyalty of visitors to their physical locations where the access points live. And so what's happening is people and customers who have mobile devices with their wireless enabled, those devices are sending out probes all the time looking for wireless networks to associate to, guest networks often. And the Meraki access points can sort of recognize those probes and understand whether someone is a visitor. So they are actually standing near the access point for a given amount of time. They're not sort of moving away. They're in your store versus a passerby. So sort of the appeal and the proximity of people to your access point. And so you're getting some information here about this for this New York Wi-Fi network for the last week. And you can see that it looks like 47,000 people passed by the retail location here, and about 607 of them are actually visitors, and 7 of them actually connected to the wireless network being offered in this H.H. Brown retail location. Now when we talk about things like engagement, we can actually measure whether the visitor stayed for a few minutes or whether they stayed for pretty much a full day. So you can get a sense for maybe you know, who's actually spending quite a bit of time in your store versus who's just popping in and popping out. And then we're also able to measure things like loyalty. So is this a repeat visitor? Is this someone who comes in weekly? Is this someone who is a first-time visitor or someone who only comes by occasionally? So you get a lot of really great data here. You can do things like see whether or not changing up the window shop or changing the layout of a store has helped increase traffic to your store and to that area. And in fact, a new feature that we've released as well that's in beta is this presence heat map. So this is actually letting you see over time where people are sort of migrating to in the vicinity of your access point. So if you actually do have a special display of some sort somewhere, if you had a floor plan view that you would upload it here, you can actually get a sense for where in your store people are spending the most time based on their proximity to the access points. So some really cool features that we're working on. Again, you know, we're just started updating this, so it's a feature that we're going to continue to grow. And I'll give you the very, very, very quick view of Systems Manager, if I can find a Systems Manager network. Do you know, Charlie, which one is a Systems Manager network here?
It's @HHBrown_mobile.
_mobile, right there. All right, got it. Thank you. So real quick, I'm not really going to spend much time here because you can literally get started with this after this webinar if you want. We have free mobile device management. We support iOS, Androids, Macs, PCs, and Chromebooks. If you were to enroll your devices in a Systems Manager network, they'd start to populate this view here, so it's similar to what we saw when we first logged into Charlie's network. You can come to your clients page and get a whole array of information about your clients. You can do sort of a contextual-like search there and see how many iPads or how many Windows machines you have. But what you can do is you can come in and group your devices into profiles. Tag them a certain way, you know, maybe staff iPads versus guest iPads or something like that. And then what you can do is come into the settings section for your mobile devices, select the group that you want to operate on, and set feature and security restrictions. So things like enabling or disabling the installation of apps, whether or not they can go to their iTunes store or their Google Marketplace, things of that nature, whether they can use cameras, a whole slew of different feature restrictions that you can allow or disallow. You can set up passcode complexity requirements, Wi-Fi and VPN templates to sort of automate the process of getting onto wireless networks or VPNs, and a whole slew of other features here. You can also do app management. So we integrate with Google Marketplace and the Apple Store. And you can very, very easily add new applications to devices and push those out. And you can even add a custom iOS application. So if you've got a homegrown iOS app that you want to push out, you can do that as well. So that is the very, very quick overview of all 4 product lines. I know there's a lot that we just didn't even get to. We do have webinars on every single one of our product lines, so I would encourage folks to check those out. I am sensitive to time. I'm going to try to just run through the next couple of slides really quickly. And we don't have a webinar slated after this, so we might maybe stay for an extra 5 minutes and just take questions for those of you that want to stay. But this is being recorded, so if folks need to leave now, understand, and you should check our website. So just real quick to wrap up, as you can see, we do make access points. We've got a couple different models, indoor and outdoor models. They all have lifetime, well, the indoor models have lifetime warranties, and they all have the features that I demoed for you earlier. There's no per feature or per user type licensing model here with Cisco Meraki products. So very, very easy to get up and running and have all your features available to you. We also have a bunch of MX security appliances, so everything ranging from a small branch office all the way up to sort of something like our MX600, which is our top-of-the-line MX, and it can service on the order of 10,000 users. And we have some great access switches, and we actually just announced our new upcoming aggregation switch. The aggregation switch will be the MS420, and that should be shipping in the fall. But these are, for the most part, what we have to ship today are gigabit access switches in 8, 24, and 48 port configurations, and you'll get all the same visibility into application traffic and client devices that you've been seeing in the demo. And then finally, Systems Manager. So again, iOS, Androids, Macs, and PCs. It is 100% free. You don't need Meraki hardware underlying your network to make this work. You can use it for your home devices. Literally, I would just go to that URL down at the bottom of your screen, meraki.com/sm, and sign up if you're interested. So if any of this sounded appealing and you want to do what Charlie did and get some evaluation gear into your environment to test drive it and see if it works for you, give us a call. We offer all of our products for free evaluation. We'll pay the shipping both ways, so there's really no risk to you. And if you need to, you can call tech support to get your trial set up. So you can either call us or go to meraki.cisco.com/eval. Okay, so that wraps up the presentative portion. I see Olivia has written up a whole bunch of questions on the board, so let me start asking those. Again, we'll take maybe 5 minutes for questions. I know we're a little bit over, and then we'll wrap up. So, Charlie,
Yes.
Very quick question for you, which was, are you doing anything where sharing services, are you sharing any services between VLANs, I guess is the question.
Sharing any services? I'm not sure what that
Maybe bonjour traffic or...
Yes, we're passing all traffic over our VPNs, so
Okay.
we're not excluding any.
Okay. Okay. We have a question about what happens when the cloud goes down. It's a really common question that we get all the time. The short answer to what happens if your internet connectivity goes down is that the majority of functionality in your network will continue to operate as is, assuming that it's already gone online at least once and grabbed configuration settings from the cloud. So what do I mean by that? Your SSIDs will still broadcast, your firewall rules will still be in play. If you're doing any authentication to local Active Directory or local radius servers, that will all be fine. What may happen is if you're doing any cloud-based splash or cloud-based authentication, those would obviously not be functioning if the cloud went down. And you would not be able to log into dashboard.meraki.com to make configuration settings changes. But that said, if the reason you can't get to the internet is because you accidentally blew yourself up, we do have local configuration pages in all of our for all of our appliances. You can log in and sort of manually, if you have physical access to the device, you can change VLAN and IP settings and things of that sort. We had another question which was, does Meraki support broadband failover, so things like 3G, 4G, and secondary uplink failover? And the answer is yes for our MXs. We do, all of our MXs actually have a USB port. So we support a number of 3G, 4G cards. The specific list is on our website, but you can fail over to 3G, 4G. And you can also have dual WAN uplinks. I think by default, the second one will be in failover mode, but you can configure them for sort of link bonding. And I don't know, Charlie, have you ever had to do cellular failover at all on one of your MXs?
We have not yet. All our major locations that need connectivity, we usually have 2 separate ISPs handling that. But we do have one remote. I don't know if you noticed by the map, there was a device out in California. Well, it's a remote unit that we have like a roaming point of sale system that goes to shows, and that's 100% cellular.
Okay.
So yeah, the mobile CS, POS, so that is 100% cellular. Oh, it's not connected right now, but yeah, once it uses the cellular to connect, and it creates a tunnel back to us, and it works really well.
And a question for you, which is in your mobile device management Wi-Fi configuration, I guess your templates, are you using any proxy configurations settings there?
We are not using any proxy configuration settings. No.
Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? We had a question about licensing, which is good. How does that work? And the answer is that when you buy Meraki equipment, so every device of ours requires a license for the cloud management, but it also includes in your license cost, what's also included is aside from access to the dashboard in the cloud, you get tech support and you get all access to our feature and firmware updates. So sort of future-proofs your hardware investment that way. But it's very, very simple. It's a real simple licensing scheme. The exception is the MX security appliance. If you want content or security filtering features there, because we partner with third-party providers for those, we do have to account for the cost for it. So there's a separate license called the Advanced Security License for that. But the Advanced Security License includes everything else plus those additional features. Or you can just get the Enterprise license if you don't want to have content or security filtering. It's really good questions. Let me just see if I can take one more. Let me look at the questions over here and see what was common. Can Meraki handle 2 different ISPs with load balancing? Well, I know for sure you can definitely be connected to 2 different ISPs, and you can have 2 separate WAN uplinks. And then from there, what you can do, and I can actually show you, perhaps on one of Charlie's MXs. Let's take. You can definitely do 2 WAN uplinks on the MX60, but you have to go in and sort of manually configure one of the LAN ports to be the secondary WAN uplink because that's more of a branch MX. But if you come into, we'll leave it as traffic shaping here. For example, if you had 2 uplinks, what you could do then is come out here and say that you want to basically aggregate the uplinks, and you can set the ratio for the data streams and how much data is passing out of each uplink here. So yes, you can. That's a great question. All right, folks, we are over time, so I do want to be sensitive. I'm going to wrap these up. If you asked a question that did not get answered, have no fear. We've captured these. So there should be a Cisco Meraki rep getting in touch with you shortly to answer them for you. Really appreciate your time and your attention. If you get a moment, please fill out the 2-question survey on your way out so that we can make these better for everybody. But thank you, and thank you, Charlie. Really appreciate you taking time to chat with everyone here.
No, I appreciate it. It was great.
All right, guys, have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.